When discussing William Afton as a character, a single question comes to mind. Why? We know his actions, but have never been given a reason or motive behind them explicitly. And this, in part, is what makes him such an interesting villain. A twist on the never let the viewer see the monster trope in writing. Except, in this case, we see the monster, but not the man behind it. Today we'll comb over various parts of the FNaF universe to find the answer. Who is William Afton? With our knowledge of his actions across all the media, I think a good word to describe him is obsessive. William Afton is obsessed with things across all the FNaF media. If something is on his mind or he wants to accomplish something, he can't let it go. He comes back again and again to achieve his goals, and today, for this kind of Halloween special, we're going to look into all his appearances throughout FNaF to gain a better understanding of the man himself. And this video will be more of a podcasty kind of thing, so feel free to leave it on in the background while you relax. An interesting example of Afton being obsessive is his relationship with Henry in The Silver Eyes. Here's a quote from the text. A search of his house had found a room crammed with boxes of mechanical parts and a musty yellow rabbit suit, and stacks of journals full of raving paranoia, passages about Henry that ranged from wild jealousy to near worship. So raving paranoia and journal entries that kind of contradict each other. It's clearly something about Henry got under William's skin. And a fair assumption is that William Afton has an incredibly large ego. He's often shown to avoid dying, and in his Springtrap role, he has a very commanding presence. But anyway, it's possible that since Henry was the heart behind the creativity and engineering genius of the franchise, William envied and despised the recognition that he got. In fact, to support that idea with evidence from the games, when the health board, or whatever it is, in Sister Location, asks about Circus Baby, Afton begins to boast about the creative and engineering genius that went into making that robot.
She can dance. She can sing. She's equipped with a built-in helium tank for inflating balloons right at her fingertips. She can take song requests. She can even dispense ice cream.
With all due respect, those aren't the design choices we were curious about, Mr. Afton.
His second obsession is immortality, and this again is likely due to his ego and fear of death. Once William Afton discovers immortal life and possession, he's restless in his desire to understand it and bend it to his will. In the fourth closet, once he's de-Springtrapified, he's experimenting with the souls of the children by melting down possessed metal into the fun times, and seeing if he can transfer that life energy. It's worth noting that he doesn't really have a plan here. Afton knows that his physical body won't hold out for long, and he's actively searching for a way to keep his consciousness alive or discover new things about ghosts, immortality, supernatural, whatever. But he's not very successful in his attempts in the sense that he can't manufacture true immortality. Even the sparks of life given by Remnant fizzle out when they are overheated. But it seems like he's really striving for perfection, like a perfect immortality due to his fear of being human. Afton in the movie is odd. We continue the trend of him adopting an alias and playing pretend, a trait of his that I find interesting, as Circus Baby stresses how important it is to play pretend in Sister Location. Afton pretends to be Dave in the novels and pretends to be a career counselor named Steve Raglan in the movie. He assumes both of these roles so that he can keep tabs on the Freddy's restaurants. Being a cop allows him to keep track of the location in person, and being the career counselor allows him to hire and keep track of employees. Another important note, while not a security guard like Dave is, Afton's daughter Vanessa does routine checkups on the pizzeria as a police officer. So, kinda similar. Afton only moves in on Mike after he starts interacting with and learning about the dead children, and after he starts fucking shit up, he says this interesting line.
Little ones tell me you have a sister.
Now, assuming he's not bullshitting, this means that the living William Afton is somehow in contact with the spirits of the dead children. And since he hasn't been sleeping in a haunted building the last few nights, I can only assume that William Afton, in the movie universe at least, was shooting up Remnant. That, or he's just somehow able to read their minds or their thoughts, like some dog whisperer type shit. But I wouldn't be surprised if he has some idea how Remnant or Possession works, because he seems pretty confident that he'll survive the spring locking. Now, I'm not exactly sure why he keeps these abandoned restaurants around. If I had to guess, it would be that he doesn't want the animatronics repossessed, or doesn't have a separate storage facility to keep them in. If that's the case, though, I don't really understand the importance of the evil remnant chair. Like, what the hell is this thing? It's like an evil murder chair with wrist locks in the middle of an abandoned pizzeria. And we know throughout the movie that the animatronics are under Afton's command. And they try a couple times to put people into this chair instead of just biting them like they did with Max. Specifically, both the night guards are exposed to the chair, while all the other people that enter the restaurant are killed through different means. But having a device like this down here makes me think that Afton might already be experimenting in this timeline, and I wouldn't be surprised to see some of his wilder projects in FNaF 2. Also, a little bonus thought for you. The Golden Freddy kid seems to, in the movie universe, be the only one aware that Afton is evil and the cause of the deaths. And on top of that, the one time we see the Golden Freddy suit is when it's guiding Abby to the pizzeria. When the Golden Freddy kid is watching over Afton, he just does this as a spirit. The actual suit disappears after escorting Abby to the pizzeria. So wouldn't it be interesting if that kid wasn't killed in this restaurant, but in another location? There's obviously something off about Golden Freddy, because he's got abilities and sentience that the others do not. So I think it's a good theory that the circumstances of his death were different from the others. Oh boy. Let's start at the first appearance. We'll assume a similar background to the one provided in the novels. William and Henry started Freddy's together, and William was jealous of Henry's robotic and creative genius. Blah blah blah. Neither I nor anyone else has any definitive answer to what happens first in the timeline, death-wise. I'm gonna guess it's Charlie, because of the way William says, "I will put you back together." The way he says that implies that he's confident he can do so. So he should know that possession is possible at the time. But even if the bite victim dying precedes his murder spree, I don't think it's motivated by his grief or love for his children. I think he'd just be a narcissist, and he'd kill Charlie after because of that obsession, to not let Henry be better than him. And we see that obsession in the novels. So if he does end up killing Charlie after the bite victim dies, I think it'll be more of a, oh, Afton has a broken family now? Cool. So does Henry. Like, he can't let Henry have his life more together. I had this theory that I thought was super cool, which is that William Afton only started a family to one-up or match Henry. This would explain why he's so violent and dismissive towards his children. They're only set pieces to make him appear better to the outside world, like he's a happy, successful man with his life together. The only problem here, though, is that Michael is too old. Michael would have had to have been born before Charlie, obviously. It's still possible that he had Michael just to keep up that appearance, but I did like the idea that William is so jealous of Henry that he just keeps trying to match or one-up him in every aspect of life, be it family, business, or creative achievement. Anyway, it's likely after Charlie dies that Afton realizes, hang on, that thing is alive, and I think this is most likely the best time for Afton to first realize that possession is possible, because of the tear marks or because of the unique nature of Charlie's possession. She has complete awareness, and keep in mind that even other random people can tell there's something off with the puppet. Phone Guy himself says that he can tell it's always thinking. Like, there's clearly something weird about it. Another interesting thing I wanted to add regarding William's personality in the novels is that he doesn't much care for his children. He treats Elizabeth like trash, like she's a nuisance and a tool, and that kind of carries over to how he treats Michael in the game series. Now then, after he discovers that possession exists, he probably doesn't start experimenting with it further until the bite victim dies or until 1985. Not only would discovering immortality boost his ego as a superior inventor to Henry, hence the whole autobiography of a yogi, joy of creative service line.
So this passage quoted in Five Nights at Freddy's is about how an inventor may never see the true fruits of their labor, and that they should be content by simply using their creativity to add to the cause.
But it would also serve the function of saving his pussy ass from ever dying. So the MCI happens, Henry maybe gets arrested, and the restaurant gets closed down. Like in 2 of the other continuities, it's likely that Afton, or at least a company that he works for, be that Fazbear or some alias he puts on after, keeps possession of the building, and now he can observe the animatronics. And somehow, someway, he's got to discover agony. My supposition would be that he observes the particularly whack behavior of the Golden Freddy spirit after killing them in a very painful way, and comes to the conclusion that the more agony or negative emotion, the greater the power of possession. It is time for the Circus Baby into Gas Chamber True Combo. Afton designs an underground bunker, a restaurant, and several murder clowns. And the plan is simple. Read the 48 Laws of Power and the Art of War, based in Red Pilled. Use the murder clowns to divide and conquer. When the parents ask where their children are, pretend nothing's wrong. Except, oops, my child, who I explicitly told not to go near the robot that I made to look like her, went near the robot that I made to look like her, and died. And I feel like people should pay more attention to that, because William Afton designs a robot in honor of his daughter, tells her that he made it just for her, gives it characteristics that Elizabeth would resonate with, like being pretty and being shiny, tells her not to go anywhere near it, and then brings her to the restaurant on opening day, and then doesn't keep track of her. Newsflash: when you try to exercise authority over somebody, especially a child, and tell them what they are and are not allowed to do, they're going to want to do that thing more, especially when you turn your back. So I believe that William wanted Elizabeth to get captured by Circus Baby. Maybe because he thought somebody with an attachment to the robot would make for a more complete possession, or maybe because if another one of his own children also went missing, he'd be clear of suspicion from any other kids that might have gotten captured that day. Either way, Elizabeth gets cooked, Afton covers up the closing of the restaurant, and returns to his rental service, which he uses to generate revenue and keep the experiments running on kids that he might have captured during the opening day of Circus Baby's Pizza World. And then it's also possible that after getting rented out, the animatronics bring more kids back. Hooray, he now has a something. I'm not really sure how William gets agony or remnant from these nightmare chambers, unless he kills the kids after they've suffered a lot. I've heard that maybe the Biddy Babs and Mini Renas are also possessed. But anyway, for some reason, William sends Michael to the bunker with instructions to put Elizabeth back together. I have a few guesses as to why this might be. One is that Afton is under suspicions from the police because of the incident at Circus Baby's Pizza World and can't move right now. 2 is that Afton is pretty certain the animatronics will try and succeed in killing him, so he's sending Michael down there as a test dummy, pretty much. And 3 is that Afton is busy doing something else. For example, leaving like a cassette or a message to play if he doesn't come back within a certain time period. So let's say he's spring-locked behind the wall when this happens. Michael's instructed to go handle it because William's not able to right now. And that would explain the speech at the end of Sister Location Custom Night, the content of which makes it clear that William Afton is somewhere far away. Or Michael is leaving to do something. One of them would have had to leave a message for the other. I'm pretty sure of that. So, as a rundown so far, we have William Afton makes a business with Henry. And Henry is the GOAT. And William Afton's pissed off. He's like, damn, this dude's animatronics are fire, his creative ideas are fire, and everyone shakes his hand and not mine, boo-hoo wah. And since he is so happy and successful, I am going to murder his daughter. Now I'm going to tell my son, who is in the hospital, or who will be in the hospital soon, that I will put him back together because it would appear that the puppet is now possessed. Think of how baller it would be if I discovered immortality and never died. I'm doing this for the good of mankind, guys. Trust me. So I kill 5 more kids, put them in the suits, or wait for the puppet to put them in the suits, and observe what happens. And since I'm a scientist, I tested a variable. In the Toy Chica high school years cutscenes, Toy Chica kind of describes methods in which she would lure people or get them to be hers, and they have different levels of violence to them. So I wouldn't be surprised if Afton singles out the Golden Freddy victim and kills them in a particularly painful way to cause as much pain as possible, just to see the effect that it'll have. Restaurant closes down, he keeps track of it, and he realizes, hey, the kid I caused excruciating pain to is way more violent than the others, way more of a complete possession, has a lot more dominion over the suit. I'm locking in, pulling $1 million out of my ass, and creating an evil murder clown, kidnapping, torture, gas scenario. So somewhere between me coming up with that idea and Michael first heading down there, I'm also going to go gather the suits of the 4 animatronics and melt their metal down to create Remnant. Now, why he does this, I'm not sure. I'm assuming it's to use as a power source for the fun times, but after getting what he can from these animatronics, he goes back looking for any spare bits, any evidence, anything he's got to clean up, and gets spring-locked in the safe room, and it gets sealed over. And an important detail there is that in the game universe, William is very panicked when he rushes into Spring Bonnie, but in the movies, he seems to know that he's going to come back to life or be okay. Now, that suit being there is either because it was there to begin with, or he brought it to use as a precaution, kind of like the Freddy mask from FNaF 2. And we see in the other continuities that when William dons the Spring Bonnie suit, the core 4 animatronics see him as a friend. But anyway, he gets out of there, and like in the novel trilogy, I'm gonna guess he's like, well, this kind of sucks, but I need to keep labbing with immortality so I can get back into peak condition, so I can achieve this for the good of science, guys, you know? And that's supported by some dialogue later. This interpretation of the character really kind of reminds me of Light Yagami from Death Note in a way, where even after he goes insane, he keeps waffling about other intentions besides, actually, I just kind of like the power. Most of his dialogue supports that, except the stuff from AR, which I'm not even sure is canon, because that's like a whole debate. Michael at this point has found out about the things that William's done, thanks to going down in the bunker and getting scooped, and he is going to everything Fazbear related in hopes that it'll bring him to William or give him a lead to find William. And he does, in the form of Springtrap getting brought to the facility. I think it would be an interesting retcon if the reason William kind of just like waddles up to Michael in the FNaF 3 jump scare is because at this point, he doesn't actually want to kill Michael. You know, he might just be like, so how'd it go? But then after Michael sets his ass on fire, he's a lot more violent in FNaF 6. Let's real quick go over his dialogue.
I always come back.
Simple enough and fits the ego that we know he has.
What a deceptive calling. I knew it was a lie the moment I heard it, obviously, but it is intriguing nonetheless.
I like Bonk Boy's interpretation of this one, which is that he's lying. Like, he didn't know it was a lie. and his ego is kind of bruised by the fact that he actually fell for it.
Fascinating. What they have become.
Referring to the souls and the spirits. This is that scientist and inventor in him. Another subtle way of him bragging. Look what I have managed to create.
You may not recognize me at first, but I assure you, that's still me.
A nod that we're still Michael. The Springtrap suit has withstood a lot of damage and looks really different now, but it's still dead.
How can I resist a promise such as this?
A nod to his intentions. More of what he wants is here, that being the souls of children.
That was easier than I thought it would be.
I read the emphasis on easier as a way of mocking Michael. Like, oh, you and Henry formed this grand plan, but look how easily I managed to tear it apart.
Bittersweet, but fitting.
Bittersweet because it's his son, but fitting because his son tried to burn him to death in the previous narrative event of the series. In short, I think Afton's a very simple villain. I don't think he kills, or even starts killing, out of, anguish for his children. I think that if he does want his children alive, it's more out of a possessive motive. Like, these are my children, how dare you kill my creations. But I think, with the Death Note example that I mentioned earlier, eventually he just relishes killing and relishes being in that position of power. From second fiddle to Henry to an immortal god that has discovered alchemy. But given his personality and the way he's shown not to really care about other people, and the way he willingly subjects his children to dangerous situations and death, if will care is true in any capacity, I think it is a very demented and selfish kind of love. One that isn't actually concerned with the child's well-being. But what do you think his true intentions are? Throw a little discussion together in the comments. And subscribe, yay!